Good morning, duelists, and welcome back to the YuGiJoe online series. It's myself, Jamie the Kid 00, joined again by YuGiOh. We're going to be bringing you guys all of the action from the top 8. So we're coming into this one slightly late. It is going to be a match between Adamancipator, hopefully saying it right this time around, and Unchained from our sources. So do you have any insight into this matchup, Joe? I know you said that you were a bit interested in what Unchained was capable of.
Yeah, so from my experience, from what I've played against that tournament, mostly, Unchained hasn't ever felt strong enough to get into this sort of position.
No.
So the pilot is particularly strong.
Mm-hmm.
Built it in such a way to take on those meta decks.
I'm very excited to see which way around that's going to work out, especially as we're now seeing a real standard opening from the Adamancipator player. So we saw the Doki Doki stop by the Infinite Impermanence, but the Researcher has allowed him to extend his play. Fibrax is, of course, going to go away into the very standard Link Cross play here. And it's useful for the animations that they are using the activation effects for us. So you guys are actually going to get to see that with the new addition to Dueling Book, the ability to declare the activation of a card, it's going to make it a bit clearer. It's just thinking about the number of tokens. I think that's the first time I've ever seen someone do that.
Yep.
Have you ever had a situation in which you only wanted one Link Cross token?
Spamming tokens is always nice.
Oh. So we're just going to take a moment while I think this through.
How many summons would that put him on?
Oh, good call. Good call. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. He's currently on 5.
So it's not a Nibiru risk assessment.
No, no. And of course, the tokens summon simultaneously, so regardless of the number he summons out, he would still get Nibiru'd just as hard. But he is going to go with 1.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see them turn into Martial Metal Marcher, so nothing too different just yet. Of course, we're then going to get the O-Lion token, I expect, and Marcher will bring back either the O-Lion or the Researcher. However, Tom is thinking about it. It looks as though he might have a response. I wonder if Tom does have the Nibiru we were talking about.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see if he shotguns it or holds it if he does.
So it's Researcher we bring back as well. Not sure if it makes any difference here, but we'll see. So Link Spider is going to be summoned using the token. And then 2 of them are going to go into Union Carrier. I've not seen this play this way around. Admittedly, I've not been exposed to that many Adamancipator players just yet, thankfully, because I've been playing in some of the lower echelons of the game. Not too much at the meta peak. But, oh, it's a way to get the Block Dragon out of the deck.
Yeah, this is a fairly standard way that they sort of tutor it out if they've got no other way to get into it. It's quite nice. It doesn't come up too often because they usually dig deep really quick, but it is an option to play through.
Yeah, you should have mentioned that you'd seen it before. I had no idea this was a line of play.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if he was going to go for that or something a little bit different, but, you know, you can never tell.
That's a ridiculous way of doing it. So now, of course, he gets his triple search. And that's really all he needs to set up.
Interesting.
So, of course, IP is in a position where it can make Appaloosa, Avramax. Avramax would be really strong here. This is really, really hard for the Unchained deck to shift. Let's see Pot of Extravagance. It's a card I actually very much enjoy playing in this list.
I think that setup of IP Masquerader could be important here, especially with the destruction prevention.
So Abomination's Prison is going to be triggered. Essentially, when that's played face up, it is just a reinforcement of the army for the deck. It allows you to search any Unchained card from your deck to your hand. But if it's destroyed as a set card by a card effect, you can special summon an Unchained monster from your deck. So he's going to use it to search out Aruha. I'm not going to go into Aruha's wording too much, but it is really the combo starter of the deck. If he now has one of the other monsters or a settable spell trap from the archetype, which it looks like he has, he should be able to go full combo. But of course, he is going to have to deal with whatever responses the Adamancipator player has set up. He's going to reconsider the set. He's going to reveal the Aruha. I think they're just rediscussing what the search was.
Yeah, he wants to see the card. That's what it is. Check the text.
Yeah, slight reverse play there. Card's going to get set back down again. Aruha is going to be revealed and triggered. So I expect he'll be destroying that face down, which is the Escape of the Unchained. Aruha will special summon itself, and then Escape of the Unchained will trigger. So two things have happened here. Aruha has destroyed a card to summon itself. A card was destroyed, so Abominable Unchained Soul that we just saw revealed in hand is going to be able to trigger, and Escape of the Unchained, because it was destroyed by a card effect, is also going to trigger. So we're going to see his field really quickly begin to fill up with monsters. And also worth noting that Abominable Unchained Soul is also going to force the activation out of the IP Masquerena, I expect, because on the new chain, in response to its own special summon, it lets you discard a card and destroy a card on the field. Most importantly, that discard a card is a cost, and there is no target declared. So very standard play line so far. Rakea summoned off of the Ruha. You following so far, Rufio?
About as best I can. Lots going on.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. There's a lot of text. Another important thing to note while we think about what plays he can make is he is locked into Fiends. And it's quite an important resource game, so I do very much understand Tom's thoughts about whether or not he wants to use the Abominations effect here. However, I'm inclined to suggest it's a very good idea because maybe it's just my lack of knowledge, but I don't know what that IP and Union carrier can turn into with absolute certainty. So I want to potentially force it now. And he is going to activate that effect. So his opponent, the Adamancipator player, is thinking it through, considering whether or not he's going to be triggering either that face down back row, which I don't believe we have any idea what it is, and it is infinite impermanence. So it's kind of good to see that used here. There are more important cards in the Unchained combo that they're going to go through in order to kind of re-establish its board presence.
So how significant do you think that'll be?
The infinite impermanence?
Yeah.
Really depends on what gets summoned off of IP Masquerena. We've also got to bear in mind the good old rule of attack points in the game. Abominable Unchained Soul is massive. So he's now just attempting to end the main phase and force the IP Masquerena regardless.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If he doesn't make something huge, then the Abominable can just run over it. Because Masquerena is going to protect from card effects, but it ain't going to protect from battle. And the handy thing is about Abominable Unchained Soul as well is if it's destroyed by a card effect, if it's destroyed, period, on the field, and it's in the graveyard in the end phase, it can summon itself back. It's kind of a free resource. So we're going to see the Unicorn interruption come out now. Unicorn's going to be triggered. I don't think we mind that too much, especially if he puts the Soul back. Depends on how much he knows about the deck. If he puts the Soul back here, Tom can just continue with his with his plays. But he is going to put back Rakea, which is the correct play here. What the next situation would have been was to use Rakea to destroy Aruha. Aruha would have been able to get another monster from the deck that allows you to cycle your spell traps back onto the field. But here's me being useless at my own deck. We are going to see Rakea actually chained onto the Aruha before it goes back, with me forgetting it's a quick effect. So the Rakea is able to, as a quick effect, destroy a card on its own side of the field. And that's the end of the effect. But of course, because they all have destruction effects, it triggers Aruha, which allows him to special summon the other boss monster of the deck, Unchained Soul of Disaster. Now, Rufio, do you know the main party trick of this deck?
Nope. I'm sure you can educate me.
The main party trick of the deck is the Soul cards, the Unchained Soul cards, with the exclusion of an Abominable, is that they can link away using your opponent's monsters. So what Unchained Soul of Disaster has just done is used its card effect wherein it can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, and after the effect resolves, link summon a Dark Link monster using only this card and your opponent's monster. So he could have made the Unchained Abomination there. I forget the kind of Link 4. He chose not to. He's going to make the Unchained Soul of Rage. An Unchained Soul of Rage is really cool because he does the exact same thing that Soul of Disaster did, except as a quick effect in your opponent's main phase.
Now, remind me, the Link 4, is that the one that has multiple pops?
That's the one that destroys when a card is destroyed by battle, when a card is destroyed by card effect, and in the end phase. And it's 3k.
Is that mandatory or is it an optional?
All of it is optional.
Okay, that's good.
But you'd be surprised in a grind game how quickly those destructions just rinse your opponent. It's such a powerful card in a more reduced game state, simplified game state. That's what I was looking for. So Tom progresses to standby phase, and he does DD Crow in the standby phase, hitting the block dragon.
That's a good shout.
That's such an important hit because he did go to so much effort to fish that block dragon out as well. And I'm kind of liking this position. So we are going to see Analyzer triggered. Special summoned, and of course that's going to be able to excavate 5 cards. It does special summon a level 4 or lower non-tuner rock monster, so even if he hits the block dragon here, he can't have it. Let's see if he uses the Analyzer here. So he's asking if the summon is acceptable. Should be okay so far. Analyzer is going to trigger. I'm a little bit upset with them. They've stopped using those wonderful activation animations.
All quickly goes out of the window.
Yeah. As the game gets more and more competitive, a little bit of etiquette goes out the window. This makes it a little hard for casters like myself, but it's okay. We'll survive. Trying to think of how many interruptions this can play through, and it's all really going to matter on these excavations. So he does actually, he misses, right? That's a complete miss off the Analyzer.
Looks that way.
So he's going to be put in a position where he's not going to have that extra resource here, and he is going to have to play through one interruption that we know of in the form of the Unchained Soul of Rage. And that can also lead into a second interruption, because it's worth noting that Soul of Rage can behave a lot like IP Masquerena. It can link away with one of your opponent's cards and make Unicorn. And then that's a second interruption. So Unicorn is a dark monster. So Seeker's going to be special summoned. There we go. There's the activation effect.
Much better.
Seeker's going to trigger, but Tom is going to ask him to hold on for a moment. Maybe jumping the gun. He's thinking on the summon. So it's worth noting there's only 2 cards in the Adamancipator player's hand now, so his options are running thin. And he's used Analyzer and Seeker as their special summon effect, so he's got to be running out of extension. Of course, now we're basically relying on him having only 1 researcher left. Sorry, 2 researchers. Then we are then going to see Rage triggered to link away with the Seeker and Rage itself. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Unicorn come out here and a discard of that last card. No, it is going to be Anguish. So Anguish is pretty much the exact same thing as Unchained Soul of Rage, except most importantly, it is not a quick effect. So that can be the only frustrating part. So I was hoping we might see the Unicorn come down and spin away the Analyzer as well. He's just going for that larger establishment on the board. Now, it looks as though that's 3 banishes. So has he got another block dragon in hand? He has! Has he drawn that for turn?
He must have done, you would think.
My goodness. It's such a strong card for him to have in hand. He's got a lot of distance to cover here, though. I mean, that Unchained Soul of Anguish, even if it is destroyed by Battle Lock Artifact, it is going to be able to target a Fiend in the grave and add it back to the hand. I'm going to see Cerberus made. I'm assuming he's going to try and chain block it. Oh no, he's only going to use the block dragon. So the Ash Blossom's going to stop the block dragon. The Cerberus hasn't been activated. That's huge.
This puts him in a sticky situation.
Very much so. It might have been a better situation to potentially put the Cerberus in front of the Unchained Soul of Anguish as well, but I'm probably being too pedantic here. But do you know where the Adamancipator player goes from here, Joe?
Well, at the moment, he's quickly running out of resources. He's obviously got the Spanish now, and I did feel that was the line of play he was going for, was to keep rigging his graveyard.
Yeah.
But that stopping of Block Dragon could be quite significant indeed.
It's worth noting the Adamancipator player, the Unchained player has completely run out of cards. Of course, this Unchained Soul of Anguish is going to give him 1 card back to his hand. But he does then have to out a 2,500 Block Dragon and establish control on the board. It's not so much destroying what's on the field, it's establishing control, because the moment that Block Dragon blows up, it's going to get that search that we just prevented. I wonder what his ad is here. So Aruha is his ad. Now the only frustrating part is, with these bigger Unchained Souls, he did have the Researcher as well, at all 3. I suppose we potentially saw them searched off of the Block Dragon previously. I was completely forgetting that he had the entire setup. And he does hit a gate blocker off of the Researcher as well.
That's an interesting choice.
Yeah, there are no field spells, so we don't need to worry about that. The deck Unchained doesn't make use of counters, so he's obviously not going to keep the gate blocker around. And it prevents targeting as well. However, this Raptite is going to hit the field. And that's going to get him access to the Seeker. So he could be going into the play with at least 1 negate in the form of Dragite. However, the handy thing for the Unchained player is Dragite only negates spells and traps. Now, has he triggered Seeker already? Or is it a soft once per turn?
Just need to check the text.
It looks as though it's a hard once per turn. I thought he had used... no, sorry, the Seeker hadn't triggered because the Unchained Soul of Rage was used on it immediately in response to its summon.
So that was it, he wanted to, didn't he?
Yes,
and then
yes.
He said no, thinking on summon.
Yeah, so the the Dragite comes out. That's then going to excavate 5, and the fact that every card in this deck has this extension effect is ridiculous. And it is going to hit a rock monster, so it is going to be able to bounce that Unchained Soul of Rage back to the hand. Sorry, Unchained Abomination. I'm getting confused with my names now.
How quickly things are turning around here.
Yeah, I mean, it's the advantage system of Adamancipator. The fact that it can generate so much from so little, even when it was so commandingly pressed in on, it's been able to just bounce straight back. So I'm interested to see where the Unchained player can take this going forwards. Or if there is anywhere he can take this at all. So play does pass back, and let's see what this draw gets him. 3 monster effect negates and a spell trap negate, staring him down. All of his monster effects are so important, and the trick with this deck is it goes 1 for 1 in a lot of situations. So it's not all that comfortable with just spinning random card advantage into an Appaloosa to bring her down. So I'm intrigued to see if he has a policy for this board. He's taking a moment to think about it. But I think we're looking at all she wrote and a very swift journey into game 2 of this top 8.
It's interesting to see a player on 7,900 life points that we're considering whether they're at the end of their tether on this one.
It's always been a great philosophy in Yu-Gi-Oh! Life points are a resource. It's game state that often dictates Yu-Gi-Oh! These days.
That's very true.
Because oftentimes, if someone's really attacking your life points for more than 2,000, they're probably attacking you for all of them. In the way that these massive boards can swing back and forth. Of course, control matchups slightly different because you are going to see little kind of 1,900 pokes. But with boards like this, a play passed is a play blown out. He's really exploring all of his options before they go through, and that's fine. They've not had very long in this first game. It's really only been about a 4-turn game, if memory serves. So Aruha's going to be normal summoned to the field. And Greeny is going to think. So I'm not sure what the Adamancipator player would have as a quick effect He's authorized it. I was wondering what he would do to stop it.
So, from your experience, is there anywhere that you see that he could take this now? Obviously, we don't know exactly what he's got in hand, but...
I mean, I think it's incredibly difficult. And the fact that he's attacked him with this Aruha, he's obviously trying to get Aruha to, I believe, destroy itself, use it, and then he wants to trigger the Abominable Unchained Soul in hand because a card was destroyed. However, I'm almost certain that the Appaloosa just triggers here, negates it, and then it's game. Or, hang on, can he chain block it? I thought Aruha was only when it was destroyed by card effect. One moment. Okay, so the way he's going to do this is Aruha, of course, when it's destroyed, does have an effect to special summon from the deck. So it's looking as though he's going to attempt to chain block for his 3,000 attack monster to come down, I expect. At least that's the way around I would want to play this. However, he could potentially be also trying to force through an Aruha to get a different monster from the deck. But he is going to go Soul Chainlink 2, Aruha Chainlink 1. So the Soul I would wholeheartedly expect to see negated here. There's the Soul. And most importantly, that effect can be triggered multiple times. You can only special summon it once per turn. However, it doesn't have a once per turn activation clause. So that could be a pretty spicy interaction if he keeps crashing things in to force down the Appaloosa.
Then just beat over it.
I mean, this Aruha can summon a pretty big monster from the deck. It can summon another Unchained Soul. Now that would use up the singular special summon clause of Unchained Soul. But I'm interested to see where it's going. We're really into the nitty-gritty here, so we are going to see those delays. So it is going to be an Abominable Unchained Soul that hits the field. I wouldn't be surprised if he triggers the effect off of it. I mean, potentially just to burn through a little bit more life points, but he's not going to. He is just going to attack straight into the Appaloosa.
I suppose if he gets rid of the Appaloosa, finds a way to get rid of the Dragite, then he's actually in a very decent position here.
Yeah, I mean, something else that he can do as well is if Abominable Unchained Soul is destroyed next turn, so say the Dragite attacks into it or crashes into it or whatever, he can then summon the other Unchained Soul in his hand and use its effect in his opponent's turn. So it's definitely not a lost position. This is hard, but that Block Dragon is on the field. It doesn't have any easy way of getting off the field. There are only 4 cards left in the Adamancipator player's extra deck. So he's running like really low on resources.
Pot of Avarice, anyone?
Yeah, we could really go for something like that right now. But it's a deck that kind of burns bright, but maybe doesn't doesn't burn as long as it really wants to. So Block Dragon's going to attack in. He's going to take the 500, and then he's of course going to use the Block Dragon's effect to search.
Small price to pay.
Could you imagine paying 500 life points to search 3 cards?
Broken.
That'd be insanity. People used to turn their nose up at Clearfort Scout for 1. So here comes a Researcher. Oh, yeah, I think he might want to change one. He didn't want to add the Researcher. Forget, did he already add 4? Yeah, he already added 8 levels worth. So
cheeky.
Dragite's going to try and trigger for the bounce, and I think this is where it's really big. And it only has to hit a rock monster, right? Yep, it's such a powerful effect on Dragite that's so easy for me to forget. Because I currently play Dragite in Mermaid. Analyze is going to come down. Now it's all about extending cards onto the field. Oh, and that Doki Doki is going to get him there. It's all about extending cards onto the field to push for game shot damage now.
Honestly, I think he's in a pretty good position. He's still got a Block Dragon he can recycle into. With Dragite, he only needs 1,000 more damage to get onto the field.
Oh, and that's plenty. So we should see the game starting to wind itself out.
Ooh.
Oh, and with the summon of Borrowload Savage Dragon, I think that's all she wrote, folks. I mean, we have two abominable Unchained souls in the Unchained player's hand. One unknown, but I don't think that unknown is going to give us enough distance to bring us back into the game with so many negates on the field now. Block Dragon summoned. And however, sorry, I'm being an idiot. This is main phase 2. Sorry, chat. It's me getting too excited. It was not going to be a push for damage. It's the problem with casting it. Sometimes you can't look at absolutely every location all at once.
Yeah, lots of variables to take into consideration.
Very much so. Especially when the battle phase essentially happens at the very start of the turn, when we're used to very, very long main phases. So Unchained does have one last opportunity to make a play here. 2 cards in hand that are essentially bricks unless a destruction happens. An Aruha and one unknown. Aruha does successfully summon, and if this play is entirely dependent on monster effects, we can remember that the Dragite doesn't stop monsters. So he is free to essentially force one negate out of the Savage Dragon, and then he can play it out. So we could just see the exact same play we witnessed last turn. Of just forcing out and protecting the card effect that he wants to use the most. It's important to note, though, Savage Dragon is on 4100, so this isn't going to be a situation like last time where you can just force an Abominable Unchained Soul onto the field and trigger it. So Aruha's going to attack into the larger of the 2 monsters, which intrigues me.
Interesting choice.
Yeah, it takes 26, and he's now going to start triggering effects. So Aruha, I expect, will be Chain Link 2 this time around, because I think he wants to force the soul onto the field. Or potentially not, by the looks of things. He's going to authorize it, so it looks like both of the chain links are going to resolve here. We've got the okay from the Adamancipator player. So we're going to see soul hit the field and then Aruha resolve. So we can go a couple of ways here, depending on how he builds his list. If he gets another one of the Unchained Souls from the deck, he can make a level 8 play here. But he's going to get Sarama. Now, do you remember earlier on when I said about a monster that can cycle the traps out of the graveyard? Sarama's your guy.
So this is where he should be able to start setting himself up.
Correct. However, he does need to deal with the threat of the Dragite as well. But very importantly, Borrowload Savage Dragon, although it's very, very powerful, does not negate and destroy. It only negates. So he's now, of course, going to force out the negate by discarding one of his abominables with the other. Now he's going to be able to continue his play with relative ease, crash the other Unchained Soul on his field into the Dragite, meaning that he's free to use any spells and traps he wants if that last card in hand is a spell trap. He's fairly freed up. Like, he's still not in a great position at all, but he could do a lot here. So he clears the Doki Doki. Is he going to clear the Dragite? Are spells and traps important to him here? We'll soon find out. I'm sat forward on this one. This game's hanging on a knife edge.
It's very much been a back and forth, hasn't it?
Yeah, every single time I've thought that a player has been written off, they either haven't been or I've been completely mistaken and not observed the battle phase. So,
which is nice and contrasting to our previous 2 games.
Yeah, it's a really good, right? I feel like this has already been as long as both of our other feature matches, Joe. So it's been good. I need to stop for water for a second. I'm burning out here.
Not accustomed to it anymore.
Not at all. This 10-minute format, I mean, it made my job very easy. So we are going to see them crashed into one another. They're going to go to main phase 2, and Sarama is going to trigger. Now, I'm wondering where this goes. So he does want to try and grab the Unchained Soul of Disaster from his graveyard.
Little bit of discussion going on between the players, yeah.
So he is going to try and summon the Unchained Soul of Disaster from his graveyard to set it to the field. And then as part of Sarama's effect is it has to then destroy a card that you control. So it can potentially destroy itself here, or it can destroy that Unchained Soul of Disaster, which will allow him to target an Unchained monster in his graveyard and pick it back up. So he's got a lot of options here. They're just clarifying a few names. A lot of the Unchained cards do have very, very similar names. So they're just discussing the play. But an Effect Veiler comes down. Just as we thought Unchained had gotten past it all. There's an Effect Veiler.
Do you think that one is a Starlight version?
Honestly, it can be any rarity it wants in a situation like that.
Platinum Veiler.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, Platinum and Starlight's basically the same thing anyway.
I'm just throwing myself back in my chair. Like, that was such a complex series of plays to stay in the game. And he was just in a position where he could re-establish himself on the board. But it looks as though the Block Dragon will, of course, be able to attack over the Sarama for 1,000. Sarama will attempt to activate, and we'll see if the Borreload Savage Dragon will negate. The Savage Dragon will negate, and it is going to try and push for the 4,100 attack points of damage. For what I expect will be game. I was holding out on the Battle Fader there. So, side decking. Hope our game 2 is just as enthralling.
It is worth noting, we've actually had quite a good chunk of time go ahead now, so that will be something they have to consider.
Very much so, very much so. However, we are going to see Unchained go first into this matchup. And if there's one thing Unchained can play, it's Floodgate traps. So we could see a lot of them coming in here. They have access to a lot of very, very powerful floodgates.
Learning lessons from their true Draco cousins, it seems.
Yeah, very much so. So we are going to see them going into game 2. Adamancipator is, of course, going to go second. They're not going to be given the chance to combo off here. We're going to see the Pot of Extravagance come out immediately. Unchained is one of those decks that I describe as a bit more fair in terms of card advantage, so it does want to take advantage of cards like Pot of Extravagance to dig deeper. Its extra monsters, while very powerful, aren't entirely essential, so it can afford to throw them away a little bit. So Sarama's going to be normal summoned and hit the field. A set card is going to be placed down. Another one.
Not scared of Mech Knights?
No, not at all, not at all. So this deck does have an Icarus attack of sorts, so that's potentially why the Sarama is on the field. So that would be one interruption. And then I'm hoping that maybe a couple of the other cards are something a bit more disruptive. So we do see Adhara special summoned, and then Seeker special summoned immediately after. Will we see Seeker trigger its effect here? Summon has been okayed. Seeker's been activated, and it is going to be able to resolve. It does hit the Gigantes, but the Gigantes, of course, isn't a legal target for the special summon because of its claws. So it's a miss. I feel like we've been gifted with a large number of Adamancipator misses.
Does seem that way.
So Halqifibrax special summoned. Every good combo in this meta game at the moment is going to start with a good old Halqifibrax, and that is going to be met by an Impermanence. Impermanence always in the middle zone, of course, so you can catch people out playing their spells in that comfortable middle zone. They are going to progress to the end phase, and in the end phase, Trap Trick is going to be triggered. I wonder if that's going to be used to set up one of the Archetype cards. It is. It's going to be used to set up Escape of the Unchained. So this was the Icarus attack style card I was talking about. You can target an Unchained monster you control on one card on the field and destroy both.
So you would have to assume that back row here is another Imperm, because he said it seems purposefully in that back row there.
And it ain't sticking around. And there it is. There's the Impermanence hit. The Escape of the Unchained is going to trigger, destroying the Sarama, and the Sarama is going to special summon potentially one of the boss monsters from the deck. He's called it Scar. Sorry, I got very confused for a second because he referred to Sarama as Scarm in the game chat. So Unchained Soul is also going to trigger in response to the destruction. So we're going to see Unchained Soul come down. We're going to see Unchained Soul come down. And then I'm hoping that maybe a couple of the other cards are something a bit more disruptive. Some of the cards Unchained Soul come down. Sarama is going to resolve special summoning another monster from the deck. And I wonder if we're going to see the Soul used in the end phase to destroy the Hulk of Fibrax before it can potentially summon a monster from the extra deck in the next turn. That Soul of Disaster tells me maybe not. Soul of Disaster is more than likely just going to link away with the Hulk of Fibrax. Now, here's where we want to be careful, because he could try to activate that Soul of Disaster on the Hulk, and the Hulk can chain its effect to dodge. So does he want to assume that there's no Hulk target in the extra deck, that he's not playing, say, Swarm of Locusts or something like that?
You would think there normally is, even if it's not a great one. If he's playing, is it Formula Synchron? That's a relevant target, if I'm not mistaken. So even if it's just a defensive move, it gives him an option.
He is going to trigger the Unchained Soul of Disaster, so it's time to see if that Hulk has a target.
He's declaring effect.
And it's been okayed by the looks of things. Oh no! That was... I entirely expected that Hulk of Fibrax to be able to jump out of the way. And that the Unchained player was going to like lose a card from hand, or like you said, a Formula Synchron was going to come down. But it's not the case. Unchained Soul of Rage summoned to the field, so that's now another interruption in the Unchained player's arsenal. Battle phase conducted, and I mean that abominable Unchained Soul being 3k is so much damage. Like, you know what I said about control matchups being the only matchup where you're maybe going to have a couple battle phases of damage? That's a lot of damage.
That is indeed.
So passes back to the Adamancipator player. It's very hard to predict whether or not Adamancipator can kind of play through this sort of thing, because it either has quick hands like this or combo plays. But forget what we thought about with combo plays.
Absolutely did not see that one coming at all.
No, I'm sitting here like, okay, he's got 4 cards in hand. That's like 4 individual full combos. What is his hand?
Incredible.
It's just, oh no, suddenly my hand is full of Vorse Raiders. And we're going to go to game 3. What was that about?
This could be insane if we see Unchained progress again after this one.
So, go... Okay, so he, so there might be a very quick reset. I'm just seeing a discussion in the game chat. It looks as though the Adamancipator player has made a siding error, so they're just discussing it for the moment. So it might have a very, very brief delay. Just to give you guys the heads up of what we have in the top 8 for you guys today, to give you an idea of what else you could be seeing across the course of the event. Our top 8 has been dominated today by Adamancipator. We have 3 Adamancipators players making up the top 8, just over a third. Then we have 2 Eldritch Synchro decks, so none of the pure Eldritch lists made it through. They were Eldritch in their entirety. We're then going to see 1 Mech Knight Invoked, the deck that just never stops working. 1 Altergeist, that's piloted by Ollie Newton, who we saw in our round 4 feature match. He did make it through in spite of his loss in that round. And then, of course, we have the Unchained player that we are watching right now. Any thoughts on the top 8 makeup?
Yeah, it's quite an interesting one to see. It's nice to see a little bit of difference. We're not just seeing purely Eldritch and Adamancipator making it up. It gives it nice diversity.
Yeah, it's a lot of it is very, of course, strongly made up of cards from that new set, but it's good to see a fair few older lists in there. We're not seeing any of the other meta titans like Dinosaurs or Shadows make it through. We've got Mech Knight, we've got Altergeist, we've got Unchained. I like these online formats. It really brings out some real experimental stuff because you can play decks that you don't own the cards for.
Yeah, certainly is the way.
Would you have played something experimental for this, Rufio? Would you have just gone, it's the one time I'm going to be able to play Eldritch without actually paying for Golden Boys. I'll just pay for this. Or are you going until you die?
I'm pretty much a creature of comfort, so I usually just play decks I know quite well. Even if they offer me somewhat a disadvantage in terms of ceiling, I can normally play them more comfortably. Unless, of course, I'm actually on stream, in which case I'll play them terribly. But for the most part, I tend to try and go with what I know.
No, I'm inclined to agree. I'm talking a big talk, but I'm almost certain I'd be very, very similar. Maybe a few spicy texts that I potentially don't own.
Yeah, for sure. That's something that I would usually go with.
Yeah. I don't have any Ghost Mourners at the moment. So it looks as though there's a potential reset. Both players have just left the game. We are just going to go to a very, very quick comms pause while I correspond with the judges to see what we're going into next. So I will be paused for a couple of minutes. We'll be back with you very, very quickly. Okay, players, very, very sorry for the brief delay there. We did just have a very quick remake, so we are going to have our players now reversed on the screen, with Adamancipator playing at the top for Game 3 and Unchained playing at the bottom of your screen. Very, very sorry for the brief delay. There was a siding error going into Game 3, so the judges have allowed for a remake due to the wonders of Dueling Book. And halfway through the Adamancipator play, we are going to see Exchange come down. Such a frustrating card to use on Dueling Book. It can be a little bit awkward to set up. Of course, getting cards into your opponent's hand. But it's very, very good for any combo deck looking to immediately pinch away one of those important hand traps. And we're going to see the Adamancipator player take an Ash Blossom away. And we're not going to see that good of a card taken by the Unchained player. He's going to take the Guardian away, of course, stopping Adamancipator player from blocking any more hand traps. Another good thing about the Exchange is it gives each player full knowledge of one another's hands. Are you back with me, Joe? What are we thinking about Exchange in the current meta?
Yeah, it's an interesting choice, especially in this kind of situation where he's already more or less revealed all of his resources anyway. So to get full knowledge of the opponent's hand is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, he's really traded no information, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
And now not only is he going to have what appears to be full combo, potentially unblocked in a way that he knows to play around any last hand traps that the Unchained player has, he also has an Ash Blossom. So not only do you take it away, you can use it against them next turn.
Yeah, especially when it's a powerful card such as Ash Blossom.
Yeah, it's massive. So we're going to see Marcher trigger and O'Lion. So Seeker's going to be brought back by the Marcher. And I'm almost inclined not to cast through this combo. I just want to see whether or not it can be broken.
Yeah, it does seem like he's pretty set to go ahead.
Spider and Cross go away. Union Carrier comes out, so we're more than likely going to see that Block Dragon set up again.
It's worth noting he can now dictate his lines of play in a way that he knows can play around his opponent's hand, so he can set up accordingly.
Correct. So say if he knows there's a DD Crow in there, this next combo could be built around not using the Block Dragon, for example, or situations like that. So we are going to see the search for the Gigantes, the Researcher, and the Seeker. Of course, one Seeker has been used, but otherwise that's it. So he's still got a huge amount of resources. Link Spider, of course, forms the Earth to summon the Gigantes. Researcher is special summoned. Researcher is going to trigger to reveal 5. There's a Doki Doki as well. Oh.
Strong.
Yeah. So he doesn't go for the Guardian as well. So that says to me that there was no further hand trap in the Unchained player's hand. So I don't think any further blocks are needed, really. So we're going to see Raptite hit the board. Raptite's going to trigger and, of course, reveal another 5. However, that looks like... Oh, no, it's not a miss because, of course, it can get tuners this time around. So he's going to special summon Analyzer. Now, is that effective Raptite once per turn? Is he going to make another Raptite? No, it is a hard once per turn. I was getting ahead of myself. So Analyzer's going to trigger. And it is going to make a hit with the blocker and the Guardian. He's going to go for the Gate Blocker.
Can we see Boral Savage here?
I expect so. I mean, even if he doesn't want to make Boral Savage here with the blocker, he could have kept it up because a lot of Unchained effects do target. But it is going to be Savage Dragon. So we're building up on those negates now. So that Raptite, forgive me if I'm wrong, that was made using Martial Metal Marcher, right?
Look that way.
So I was expecting to potentially see the Raptite used with the Doki Doki, but we're not going to need it to. Herald of the Arclight to seal the deal. So we now have a board of 1 negate universally with Borrowload, another universal negate in Herald of the Arclight, and then whatever he really wants with IP Masquerena. So Unchained has its work cut out for it, especially when Adamancipator knows his entire hand.
Yeah, he's certainly in a very, very strong position.
I'm sitting with bated breath. I hope we see cards played. We are going to see Extravagance activated, banishing 3. So he's expecting this to be negated, I expect. Either that, or there is a card in his extra deck that he wants to keep safe, but he does need the draw.
Ash.
So the Ash Blossom is going to be used by response. And of course the Ash is going to be banished because it was sent under Herald. But that is one of the negates gone, so there's only 2 left. But the reason why I sit here with pinched breath on this situation is Unchained only really has one main starting line of play through that Aruha. So I'm intrigued to see what else it can do to get around the additional negates. So Rikea's going to be normal summoned. The Adamancipator player is going to think about the situation. Could be the case that he unicorns the Rikea out of the way before something like an Aruha could be triggered targeting it. And that looks as though it's going to be the line of play he is taking. So IP Masquerena is going to trigger, tributing itself away with the Union Carrier, or linking, sorry. We are going to see the Unicorn come down, and that last card in hand get discarded to spin away the Rikea. That last card was just a Tackle Crusader, so it's not doing a lot here at all. But Unchained is thinking he might have a play here. So he's going to trigger Rikea on itself. I'm intrigued as to how useful that is. Because, oh no, he's got an Abominable Unchained Soul in hand. So he's going to be activating the Rikea to try and force a destruction on itself, sending it to grave, keeping it out of the deck. And then if that Soul in hand can trigger, that forces at least 1 negate. So Savage triggers, it isn't destroyed, and it wasn't successfully special summoned. So to my understanding, he can try and do it again, but he's not going to. He's just going to pass play.
Surely we have it here.
I mean, with the Block Dragon added to this field, and there's so many attack points staring him down, unless he's teched in a Battle Fader, I think this could be all she wrote. Goodness gracious, after one real slog of a game, we get these 2 blowouts, and there are GGs in the chat, boys. We have our top 4. So Unchained is going to fall at the top 8 hurdle to the ridiculous power of Adamancipator. But what do we think about what we saw in that game, Joe?
Well, let's first clarify. This is a fantastic position. The Unchained's even got this far. So definitely a big congratulations to Tom on getting that far with such an off-the-cuff deck.
Yeah.
He must have built it so that it's worked in previous iterations against these kind of meta decks, because that is what you'd expect to play. Potentially he had a favourable run anyway, but all that really matters is he got into the top cut, he put on a fantastic show. It did look like he could have progressed at one point, and unfortunately the strength of Adamancipator just won through.
So it's definitely a deck that has obviously been seeing amendments into the metagame. Discussing with my testing partners, the 2 types of decks that can be played are these ridiculous combo decks like Adamancipator or Synchro Eldritch, or decks that can get away with playing somewhere in the region of it's kind of 10 to 15 hand traps or real traps. So this definitely falls under that second category, wherein it can weather the storm of these resources. But just to give you guys a final heads up, we are going to be progressing to our top 4. I would recommend, if you have lunch plans, you go and take action on that now. There is a planned outage on Dueling Book coming up, so we are going to be taking a bit of a longer commercial break for us. Hopefully there'll be some alerts on the chat for you. I hope you have all enjoyed. This is going to be the last stint from myself and Rufio for the tournament, but you can always message the YouTube channel asking for us back. Always be great. But I hope you've all enjoyed, and we'll see you guys with some more content when the YuGiJoe online series returns after these messages. See you soon. Bye bye.